This is the EchoCast. I am Morgan, aka Bon, and this is a gaming podcast about all of the news, reviews, and speculation around video games on all platforms and almost every genre. Please take a moment to subscribe to and rate the podcast, as well as share it on social media, and I don't know, share it with your friends. If your platform allows it, please drop a review. If you are on YouTube, please leave a comment if you have thoughts on the show, a question for me to discuss next week, or to just help me out with the algorithm. Just say hello. Finally, if you are on Discord, please join the show's Discord, link down below in the description, and we can talk about games this episode and anything else you fancy. We've been talking a lot about NFL, so I don't know, come by, say hi. Thank you to our Patreon supporters this month: PK, Uber Timmy, Hassan, Christian, Man-Made Golf, Grano, and The Dawn. If you would like to support this podcast and my other content, please check out patreon.com/BonDiesel. Last but not least, please consider contributing to my 2022 Extra Life campaign by clicking on the link down in the description or in the comments of the YouTube video. Let's jump into it with some gaming news. First story we are going to talk about is Star Wars 1313 prototype footage being released. In an IGN article by Jared Moore, they reported the following, quote, "New footage has been released from the canceled Star Wars 1313 project that shows off Boba Fett in action. It's another tantalizing glimpse of a much anticipated game that never came to be. The gameplay, which was uploaded to YouTube by Battlefront 3 archive channel, The Vault, in celebration of the game history project's 6th anniversary, shows off 2 clips depicting Boba Fett in action." This gameplay, I noticed it first over on Twitter from Shinobi602, who's a big game commentator and leaker and so on and so forth. And basically it's just a bunch of footage of Boba Fett and running around levels of different finished quality. Some of these, I think it was Coruscant maybe, was one of the levels that looks like was like very finished and looked really, really good. And then some was just some straight up gray boxed levels, which if you don't know much about game development, games get developed for most of the way in like gray boxed, very ugly looks, and they kind of finish them up at the end is at least the impression I have. So this looks really cool. This only kind of reinforces how sad it is that this got canceled, because it definitely gives that like PlayStation's exclusive vibe, and it would have been multi-plat. To me, it kind of had like a rebooted Tomb Raider or like Uncharted, kind of that feel to it. It looked really, really cool. And it's a huge bummer that happened. It's also worth considering that this project being canceled is probably why the legendary Amy Hennig left EA and is now working for a studio called Skydance Media. So what's most frustrating about this, in my opinion, is that this game was in development and probably supposed to be released before The Force Awakens came from Respawn and before Squadrons came out. These were both from EA, and they literally came in at pretty much the tail end of this exclusive contract that EA had for many years with Disney to make Star Wars games. And before that, the only games they made, as far as I can remember, were Battlefront 1 and 2. And those games were okay. Battlefront 2 had a story mode that people seemed to enjoy for the most part, but they were just Battlefield games basically, and people wanted more than that. They wanted some narrative games and things like that, and we just never got them. Obviously, Force Awakens came out. A lot of people liked it. I personally wasn't a big fan. It's very much a like Souls-like type game, and I'm not into those games. It's too punishing for me. I kind of like to enjoy playing single player games. Now multiplayer is different, but single player, I'm not really looking to like be pounding my head against the ground. I kind of just want to have fun and see a cool story. Um, so, while EA kind of redeemed itself by bringing those games out, this could have been, if this 1313 project came out and was as good as it looks like it could have been, then maybe Disney doesn't pull the exclusivity from EA, because now we have other studios making Star Wars games. The whoever made Become Human, I believe they are making one now. If you're a fan of this show, you're probably aware of Ubisoft Massive. They are now making a Star Wars game as well. And while EA will likely continue to make Star Wars games, we know that Respawn is working on a sequel to Force Awakens. I believe they have other projects in the works. I want to say Respawn is maybe doing more than just Force Awakens. I don't know. They really EA wasted that license for a long time, or wasted that exclusivity for years, and canned a game like this. Why? We'll never really know. There's stories on both sides, but obviously it led to some bad blood, because a legendary, game lead and Amy Hennig left seemingly because of it. So yeah, I don't know. That footage looks great. I highly suggest going to check it out. It will be in the link down in the description of the YouTube video, if you want to check out the article from IGN. The second story here is talking about more NFT news. So an NFT interview with an Ubisoft vice president. In a Finder.com interview with Chris Steed, the Ubisoft VP, Nicolas Pouard, which I'm sure I'm mispronouncing, but I don't care. They had this back and forth, and we'll talk. We'll go more into it. The question from Finder.com, Finder.com's Chris Steed was, gamer feedback to the Ubisoft Quartz and Digits launch was generally negative. What has the feedback told you about the prospects of mainstream NFT success? Nicholas's response: well, it was a reaction that we were expecting. We know it's not an easy concept to grasp, but Quartz is really just a first step that should lead to something bigger, something that will be more easily understood by our players. That's the way we think about it, and why we will keep experimenting. We will keep releasing features and services around this first initiative, and our belief is that, piece by piece, the puzzle will be revealed and understood by our players. We hope they will better understand the value we offer them. So there's lots of takes on this. Obviously, if you've been following this general NFT kind of story, they're not great. And there's two parts to this. It's one, the talking down to the people who give this person a job, the people who buy the games, and who they're trying to get to do this to help, put more money in their pockets. And it's just that. It's just the talking down to, but there's multiple aspects to it. He's talking down as if we're all a bunch of cavemen who can't. The only reason we don't like NFTs is because we don't get it. That if we got it, if we understood, and this whole interview is like this. I'll have a link at the bottom in the comments, or you can go to Finder.com and look up the interview. This whole interview is just this guy. This guy must be the one who's going to get fired if NFTs don't work, because the entire interview is him just basically being like, yeah, they're too stupid, and it's not. We didn't do a good job of explaining, because that would be different if they were saying, yeah, we think there is a value in this, but we didn't do a good job of communicating that. That's a fair stance, in my opinion, even if I don't think that there is value. And I think the reason, we'll get more into it, but it's the fact that the attitude of old Nicholas here isn't, you know, they don't understand because we didn't explain. It's they didn't understand. Essentially, the attitude, in my opinion, is because they're too stupid. And while I'll never argue that the gaming hive mind isn't kind of dumb, um, I think the attitude portrayed in this whole interview, but especially this question, is it's very typical whenever you see someone trying to explain the value, quote unquote, of NFTs, because the way the conversation tends to go, in my opinion, is check out this cool NFT. And then people being like, why? No, I don't want that. But then it's like, but you don't understand. This is great. This does good things. This has good value. And then the response from people is, well, what is that? Like, what? Tell me exactly. What's the value? What's the advantage? And then it seems like the response to that is like in this interview, well, you just don't understand. You know, it's so funny. And again, I've talked about it before, but what this stuff always feels like is like a used car salesman who you go and you say, oh, well, that looks like it's kind of rusty. And it's them, basically, you know, telling you, nah, it's not rusty. This is a good car. This is a good car. But I see this and that and the other thing. Oh, no, it's fine. That's all. It's okay. You don't see that. No, it's fine. This car has great value. Well, it doesn't look like it has great value. And I don't know why I should spend my money. No, you should, because it's really good. Why? Man, it just is. Like, or, hey man, do you want to sell some of these vitamins? I'm selling them, and you should too. And if you sell enough, we'll both make money. Oh, well, what's so great about these vitamins? Oh, they're just really good, and we can both make money. Well, like are they better than regular vitamins? Oh, don't worry about it. Just, it just comes off like this weird kind of scammy talk every single time I see these conversations happen. And I've seen people say things like, well, what if, I want, it seems like this is a very biased topic. So either you are super, super into it or you're super, super against it. And neither side seems to really explain their stance that well. And my issue is that if you look at those two groups, I think there's a lot of people who don't fully understand this. I won't even act like I fully do. But it's a lot of people who don't understand it or do, and they all think it's bad. And then the group that thinks it's a good thing seems to be the people who stand to make money off of it. I don't know if I've seen anyone pushing these things so hard who stand to not get anything out of it. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's tons of people out there who are like, I am completely unbiased and this is amazing. And I am yet to find any of them. So this whole article was, I saw someone tweeted, I think it was Imran Khan, was like, this is like the most Ubisoft response to this ever. And it was just like, this guy basically just giving two giant middle fingers to everyone and being like, you are all idiots and you're still gonna buy our Far Cry and you're still gonna buy our Assassin's Creed and you're still gonna get our Rainbow Six skins, and we don't give a shit and we're not gonna do anything to make things any better. Could we try to make some interesting, innovative, really high quality, polished games with stories you want to replay or a multiplayer that is like really groundbreaking? No, we're not going to do that. We're going to make NFTs because that's what we care about. The quick buck. We're jumping on to, I mean, to be fair, to give Ubisoft some credit, this is as close to a trend that they've actually been on time with. At least this isn't them making open world games 5 years after they were popular. At least this isn't them implementing features and mechanics into their game, into their games. Trying to make Fortnite, 5 years after, or however many years after that's already been done, and that niche is owned. So hey, at least the NFT thing, at least the most scammy, weird thing that they could possibly get into, at least they came in early on it. At least they were real innovators in that space. And I'm pretty glad to see them kind of take that one on the chin. So it's really frustrating, and this, as well as them not really responding to all of the mistreatment and the shielding of abusers and things like that. um I made this tweet, on my Twitter, and I said, in 2018, I was a Ubisoft star player. They flew me to Los Angeles for E3. They paid for a super nice hotel, like a very nice hotel, for multiple days for me to attend E3, to attend private events that they paid a ton of money for, to go out to eat multiple, like they spent a ton of money, and I got to see a bunch of cool stuff and have a bunch of cool access. I was into basically everything they were willing to show me. And in 4 years, not even 4 years, 3.5 years, I now am not excited about a single thing that Ubisoft is doing. I'm not even excited about the Division stuff anymore. If you know me as a Division fan, the Division 2 content feels like it's 2 years too late. The Heartland, who knows what's going on with that? Now it looks like one of the leads of that studio is not even there anymore. He quietly took off and went to another studio to work on a different game, which, I'll let you research that on your own if you care. That's not my business to really put out there right now, but I did notice it. I was shown it, if that person is listening. Ubisoft they're doing nothing exciting. I am, because I trust Massive. I am excited to see what Avatar and their Star Wars game will be, and hopefully one day they do a Division 3. But I don't care about anything else they're making. I don't care about the next Assassin's Creed. I don't care about the next season of Rainbow Six. I don't care about any of these garbage games they're throwing out. Extraction, X-Defiant, Frontline. I don't care. None of that stuff is interesting, because we already know what it is. If it's not out yet, we know what it is. The next story is going to talk about one of those projects that they're now shutting down. I just don't. It's so weird how, a self-proclaimed fanboy of this publisher, now, like, I don't trust them to do anything cool anymore. I trust the devs. I trust the studios. If Ubisoft Corporate lets them do something cool, I think they can. I don't think they will. I think the Ubisoft Corporate is so worried about doing this kind of crap with these NFTs and stuff that they aren't going to greenlight some innovative, really cool game. But they're sure as hell going to make sure that they jump on the NFT train as soon as possible. So I don't know. I'm very, very, very disenchanted by Ubisoft at this point, and to the point where, like, if I had to list 5 things, the 5 top games I'm the most excited about, an Ubisoft game probably doesn't even land on that list, and that includes Heartland and Division 2 content and a one-day Division 3. Doesn't even land on the list. Right now it's probably, number 1, even though it's the furthest away, the next Mass Effect, probably Starfield, Hellblade 2, whatever Respawn's working on, and what's a good 5? There's a few things that would probably fall in there, but I just don't. I don't know. This is frustrating, because 1, it's insulting to the people who they are supposed to be trying to make content for, and 2, it just shows how jacked up their priorities are. Just my opinion. And from previous topics, I don't even want, like I had said before, that it'd be cool if Xbox purchased Ubisoft. I don't want them to. I don't want that to happen. I would rather Ubisoft buy BioWare, and the Mass Effect IP. That would be way more preferential, because at least, I don't know. I'll move on, but yeah. So here we go. So the next story is another Ubisoft story, unfortunately. And this one, my tone will be probably more even than expected. Hyperscape, the Hyperscape Battle Royale is ending development and support. So in a blog post on the official Hyperscape website today, on Friday, they said the following, quote, "Contenders," which is apparently what they call their players. "We have made the difficult decision to end development of Hyperscape and shut the game down as of April 28th. We set out to create a vertical, close quarters, and fast-paced shooter experience, and we are extremely grateful to our community for joining us on our journey." We will be taking key learnings from this game into future projects. To the Hyperscape community, thank you for your passion and dedication to the world of Neo Arcadia from both inside and outside of the game. Your devotion to the game we built will always be cherished. Reach out to us if you have any questions. Sincerely, Hyperscape, end quote. So they're shutting down Hyperscape. So the kind of depressing thing about this story is that I bet 90% of people forgot Hyperscape existed. I remember it because I've been talking about it a lot when I talk about this directive that that led to Hyperscape. I'm under the impression that 2 or 3 years ago, maybe even more, Ubisoft basically put out something to all of their big studios. I know I've said this over and over. I'll get through it quickly. They said, hey, use existing IP and assets to make a free-to-play and or AA price game, and do it. Just do it. And what they were trying to do was they saw that Fortnite started off with their single player mode, and then that they essentially took those assets and made a BR, and it's the biggest thing in the world. And so, go figure, Ubisoft, years too late, was trying to basically copy that success, and they failed miserably. When we talk about the games that have come out of that initiative, Hyperscape, the upcoming X Defiant, which I'm not technically allowed to comment on, but I'm not hopeful. Let's see, Phoenix Rising, which was actually pretty cool. That's actually a pretty cool game. That's the best thing that's come out of it. We have that Frontline game coming, Extraction, which I'm super happy there's some people enjoying Rainbow Six Extraction. I can't even believe, like, it's so I talked about it last week. It's generic. I don't think it's very good. I think it's going to disappear in a month, maybe 2, but we'll see. This Hyperscape was the first one that came out from that initiative, as far as I know. And what's really kind of a bummer about it is I specifically remember, all of these Xbox, all games at this point, but especially Ubisoft games, they always come out and they have like a hot week because Ubisoft pays a shit ton of money for people to play them, for Dr. Lupo and Shroud and all these people. They back up the dump truck full of money and they drop it and they say, hey, make our game look like it's relevant on Twitch or YouTube or wherever. And they do it. One of my favorite things that happened, an example of this, was when Ghost Recon Breakpoint came out. Look, I know there's some stands for that game. That game sucks. That game's awful. I'm sick of tiptoeing around it. That game is awful. It's one of the worst games I've ever played. And I played it from an early alpha build until just a few months ago when they supposedly did a bunch of updates and made it better. It still sucks. It's an awful game. But I specifically remember that I think it was the day after Breakpoint came out. It's when the Division 2 was still kind of popular, but not, it had lost a lot. And Breakpoint had like 80,000 people watching Breakpoint streams on Twitch. And I remember someone screenshotting it and then screenshotting I think the Division had like a few thousand. It wasn't very much, maybe 10,000. And someone screenshotted both and was like, oh, I guess Breakpoint's a lot better than people thought. And then I'll never forget, I think I did it, but someone then, like 4 days later, after all the streamers weren't playing it anymore, screenshotted Breakpoint again. It had like 500 people watching it because it's not good. And so Hyperscape had that moment where they were paying all these streamers to play it. And what's really a bummer about it is that there was a moment where you could, like, it seemed like a lot of these people were genuinely saying like, hey, this Hyperscape's actually pretty cool, because the way they did the BR, the way that the circle came in, I remember that being really unique, and the movement and the verticality, and like that's what they said in their release, is the way of moving around the map was really unique. And so it seemed like it was a cool idea. And this is a situation where, like, I'll never, this is awful. This sucks, because there's developers who spent years on this and spent hundreds of thousands of hours on Hyperscape. And in the lead up to it, Ubisoft kind of pushed it, and when it came out, they kind of pushed it, and then they dropped it dead. And that's what Ubisoft does. It's so annoying. They do an okay job of hyping their games up before they come out, and then if it's not Assassin's Creed or Rainbow Six. They just drop it dead on its face afterwards. They act like it never existed, and it's so annoying. It's why I've argued for a long time. I think the Division franchise could be their number one or two franchise if they properly supported it and properly allowed their developers to do everything that they intend to do with the brand. But instead, if it's not Assassin's Creed and it's not Rainbow Six, you get to make the game until release, you get to fix it a little bit, and then they kick you on to the next project. And that really sucks. And even though, this Hyperscape thing failing isn't that surprising if you've followed what's going on with it, it sucks because people spent an insane amount of time on this game and a lot of passion and a lot of heart went into this. But, because Ubisoft is borderline ballless, has no guts anymore, they just kind of poop these projects out and then forget them. And I think that really sucks for the devs that really tried here, and the comm devs and the community who enjoyed it. It is like I did chuckle a little bit inside when it said something like "Thank you to our community." I mean, come on, it's got to be like 50 people. Like, I'm not trying to dunk on it, but it really can't be that many people because not only are they ending development, they're shutting the game down on April 28th. Like it's not uncommon in this situation for them to be like, hey, we're not going to put out any more big patches. The development's basically done, but we're going to leave the servers up for the people who want to play. There must be so few people playing this game that they have calculated it's not even worth keeping up the servers for like the rest of the year. They've done the calculations and it makes sense to just shut it down. There must be so few people playing it that they're like, yeah, we're going to piss off a couple hundred people, maybe. And that sucks because any project like that deserves more than what it got. I don't blame the devs. I blame Ubisoft for bad initiatives and lack of long-term support, which is, I think you could describe almost every one of their current IPs like that, even their successful ones, if you want me to be totally honest. And like I said before, I wouldn't be surprised if Frontline, X Defiant, Extraction, all of these kind of follow that same path, because they don't seem like genuine, soulful, like they don't seem like they're being made because like Ubisoft really believes in these games. This initiative from the get-go was just a chance to squeeze money out of existing IP. That's all it was. And while a game like Phoenix came out, which I think is legitimately really cool, and I'm glad, and I think it's worth every penny, it sucks that these other games, like Extraction and Hyperscape and probably Frontline and X Defiant, you can't count your chickens before they're hatched, but there is a pattern here. I don't know. I feel bad for the devs is what it comes down to. So a few quick stories here. Crysis 4 was announced by Crytek with a teaser trailer, but no major details have been revealed at this time. The big joke around this announcement was, oh boy, everyone get your video cards ready that you can't buy. And so everyone's going to be trying to run this like next gen game on their like 2080, or hell, on their 1060, So, interesting. This is one of those things from some articles I read about it. There's a good chance Crysis 4 isn't coming for like 4 or 5 years. So it's cool that they announced it. It's probably not coming anytime soon. Halo Infinite and Xbox announced that they have hit 20 million unique players in the game, which makes it the most popular entry at this point in its lifetime in the entire franchise. I as much of a Xbox boy as I am, and I did really love Halo, this feels a little disingenuous because I can almost guarantee they're counting the free-to-play multiplayer players into this, which is fine. I mean, it's not hurting anything. It is people playing Halo Infinite. But regardless, that's awesome. I hope that amount of interaction means that they're going to put out more story content and things like that. I really hope we don't have to wait for the next Halo game to expand on the story. They kind of insinuated that Halo Infinite is like a platform and they're going to add like entire like stories to it, that we aren't expecting like an Infinite 2 in 3 or 4 years. At least that's the impression I'm under. So good game, gets lots of attention. It's always a good thing. The Unity engine, which the main game I know of that uses it is Tarkov, is teaming up with Ziva Dynamics to create an Unreal MetaHuman competitor that looks awesome. They put out a video. It's like an Uncanny Valley thing where like it looks so realistic, but it's like but your brain like can still tell like that's not a real person. So if you don't know what MetaHuman is, the Unreal Engine, which half of games are made on, has this metahuman tech, which was showcased in the Matrix game demo that they put out a while back, a month or two ago. And it's basically a system that uses algorithms to randomly create, well, it has multiple functions, but one of them is that you can basically randomly generate NPCs in a game that will never look the same. Like you'll never walk by the same NPC twice. Or as what was shown in the Matrix demo, you can have a whole city of NPCs that exist in day-to-day life. So you can have a city where there's an NPC that at 8 o'clock in the morning leaves a building, walks a certain route, walks to their car, drives their car to a certain building on the weekdays, stays there for 4 hours and then leaves, and then goes back and maybe goes to a restaurant and then goes back to their house at 10 o'clock at night. And then they have a routine, and that routine is tracked, and that's hundreds of thousands of these. Like, it's a really cool system that got shown in the Matrix demo, and that's super exciting. The other part of it is that there's a tool called MetaHuman where you can use this really easy to use tool that uses the Unreal Engine to design these people that you can make them look like a real person. And I think it can even take scans and use those, so you can like start with the real scan and then make it look even better, or you can randomly generate, and it does all of the animation, all the facial rigging and all this stuff. It's super cool. So basically what Unity has done is teamed up with another programmer who has this similar thing for Unity. Unity, I believe the big thing with Unity is that I believe it's either free or it's much, much cheaper to use their engine on a video game than Unreal. And even Unreal isn't unreasonable, but they're under Epic, and if you know that whole saga, that's a whole different story. So this is cool. Competition's a good thing, and Unity providing that competition to a juggernaut like Unreal, for the most part, especially in gaming, one top dog doesn't innovate. A top dog with other dogs on its tail tends to work harder. So hopefully we see the results of that. The second to last thing here is Dying Light 2. So it's coming out really soon. I'm so conflicted about Dying Light 2 and all the stupid 500-hour stuff. Like, I'm past that. My issue is that I like what it looks like. It's going to be like a really cool, like Fallout-ish RPG, which is really interesting. I think that's something I could use right now, a game like that. My issue is I don't like games that have first person, like parkour and melee combat. And that looks like that's all this game is. And so this might be one of those where I might wait to see if this game comes to Game Pass eventually. I can't really foresee myself dropping 40 or 60 bucks or 70 on this game right now. So I put out the question to you, and you can leave it in the comments or over on my Twitter at BondDiesel. Are you excited about Dying Light 2? Did you like the first game? Does their campaign so far excite you for this game? And is it something you're interested in playing and checking out? Okay, my last story here. I had to do it. We just like I used to be able to not be able to do a whole podcast without the Division 2, which there was technically Division 2 news this week. There was a listing for one of Ubisoft's Chinese studios that looks like it basically revealed like everything they're working on for this new update. I did caution people in saying that there's always a chance that because of some content rules and regulations in China, sometimes game developers make games or updates just for China. and because there's certain symbols and stuff you can't have in media there, and so there's a slight chance that some of this really cool stuff they were talking about in this job listing may not be for any region outside of China. So just throwing that, if you see these videos that people are posting and making videos about it, about this job listing, which like I can't even hate on that. I used to do it all the time. I just don't care enough anymore. There is Division 2 news. You're not going to get it from me this week. I'll wait until there's something concrete to talk about. Moving on to my new love, Mass Effect. Um, so I finished Mass Effect again. This is where everyone can roll their eyes and click off the podcast, I guess. But it was interesting. So this time, for Mass Effect fans, this was my fourth like true playthrough where I really like seriously played it. And I did it as a Vanguard, which, if you are familiar with the game, is like a soldier biotic mix. And again, did Paragon. I don't know if I can ever do a mean guy playthrough. I didn't like it. I did not like the Vanguard class. I like the soldier class, and that's something I've discovered about myself. So this is the first time I believe I romanced like Ashley. I did Ashley, Miranda Ashley, and honestly it was a huge bummer. I didn't like it. It's weird because they the Ashley character is there from the very start of the game, just like for the most part the Liara character is. Now if you're not familiar with the series, Liara is one of the alien characters, and it's pretty well known in the community over the years that she was the favorite of the writers. And you can tell she's highly involved in everything. If you romance her, it's the best quote unquote romance, because you just have the most interaction with her. There's the most moments between your character and her. Whereas Ashley is in the game just as much as her, essentially, and you don't get anything, nothing. In fact, in the third game, I thought that, because she's not really in the second game that much, but in the third game she is, and you literally basically don't get a moment of any type of relationship with her until the last two missions of the game, and they're pretty good. They're actually pretty great. They don't quite make up for the fact that the rest of it's awful, but yeah, it was a real bummer. So then, like, the problem with Miranda is that while her interactions in 2 are really cool, in 3 she just gets relegated to like popping into the story a couple times, and if you make one mistake she dies. So I don't know, it's such a good game. I think I say it every week. If you haven't played it, check out the Legendary Edition. It's on Game Pass now. There's even on PC, so there's no excuse not to try it. It's interesting with playthroughs. I did start another playthrough. I think what's going to end up happening is I'm going to have to like take like 3 or 4 month breaks between playing the game, because I don't want to burn out, because I'm not there, but I could be. And it turns into a thing of like, yeah, I know I'm going to need to try to stretch this for probably like 3 or 4 more years. And so, I kind of have to dial back a little bit. But yeah, so here's my weekly reminder: play Mass Effect. Okay, listener questions. Master Prime has 3 questions per usual. Thank you very much, over on Discord. Is Ubisoft a sinking ship? So they're still making money. Like, they're making money, gobs of money, if anything. The problem is that just right now, there's no soul. There's no substance to Ubisoft. And it may be coming. Maybe the Splinter Cell game is going to be amazing. Hopefully Avatar and Star Wars are going to be great. I don't even want to talk about like, well, hopefully next Far Cry is awesome. Like, we already know today what the next Far Cry is gonna be like. Same with Assassin's Creed, same with Rainbow Six, same with all these other things. So Ghost Recon, like, we already know what they're gonna be, probably. So I don't think they're sinking, but I think they're a ship adrift that the more they play into this NFT stuff and all that, they're only gonna lose more will from their player base, and that's not good for a company like them. So we'll see. The second question is thoughts on people using Twitch to decide if a game is dead or not. I mean, it's stupid. There's a very small niche of games that can even kind of judge that, and it's multiplayer games, because that's what's popular on Twitch. Single player games aren't popular unless they're new or unless they have like very dedicated fan bases, right? So like, is the Mass Effect Legendary Edition dead as a game? Well, no. It's probably as popular as Mass Effect has ever been in recent years, but there's probably not that many people watching it on Twitch. It's not the most exciting game to stream, or to watch. So yeah, I mean, that was always a big topic in the Division community of like, oh, there's only blah 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 numbers. And I've even cited the numbers before. The times I've cited those numbers were after the 2 raids. After the first raid came out, their viewership got boosted a ton. It did bring a lot of eyes. The second raid didn't. So obviously the game had been through some trials and tribulations at that point, but it was also just that the raids and the Division, I know people like them, but they just aren't very exciting. The second one is mechanically complex and really cool, but they just aren't that interesting. I think for raids and like for that kind of content to be big, you have to have a game that's already very popular, like Destiny. And so I think that you can maybe judge some trends from viewership on Twitch, but I'm sure that there's some games that are massively popular that have no one watching them on Twitch. So I think the only time people do that is when it's convenient to the point they're trying to make, positive or negative. The final question is, can player feedback ruin a developer vision of a game? I think most devs at this point have basically learned to just ignore players. They get so much more valuable information from analytics and stats that they can track of actual players, because the problem is that player feedback, I would imagine, typically comes from like 2% of your player base, and no decision should be made on that small of a percentage of people. When you can look at, so say someone says this gun sucks, it's overpowered. Well, they can look to see if that gun is overpowered or not. If everyone's using it, then oh, okay, yep. But that's something they can do on their own. They don't need someone to say it sucks or it's OP. They can do that themselves, and they do. On top of that, I think I've talked about this recently, is creators, being input. I'm a big Tarkov fan. I sincerely believe that there's influencers in the Tarkov community who have way too much influence in that game. But that's just my opinion. What's interesting about it is that I think, and I've talked about this before, the problem is that influencers especially have a goal with content. They want games to be entertaining for them to stream and make content for. They don't necessarily care if the games are good, and they don't necessarily care about if the games are good for a lot of people. They care if the game is good for them to make money. And so in that case, feedback in general, I don't think is as useful as people think it is. I think feedback on bugs is the best feedback. I think feedback on mechanics and balancing and all that is almost useless. So that's just my opinion. And I think most devs have realized that now. We'll see. Okay, we're going to move on to the content updates. So I am trying to consolidate my content. So right now I am currently using, in one way or another, Patreon, Discord, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, 2 different merch stores, and all of the different podcast platforms, especially Anchor, to actually post. That's too much for someone who's doing this stuff as a hobby. For someone who would like to still, even though it's a hobby, would like to grow and improve my content and consistency and stuff like that, it's too much. The merch stores, I haven't sold a piece of merch in like 2 years, if not more than that. It's just like, even the Patreon, like I have 7 patrons. I shout them out every week and I really appreciate them. One, I really question whether they're getting their money's worth. I don't think they are, because I don't do that much exclusive stuff on the Patreon. And I almost feel like I could filter those people into other ways of supporting that would just lessen my load of things to pay attention to. And instead I could, if I only thought about like the podcast and Twitch and made YouTube videos whenever I felt like it, instead of like feeling like I always need to do something. I feel like that would be a much better use of my time, and I would probably do stuff more consistently in that situation. So don't be surprised if something comes up soon. I am slightly considering cutting the Patreon, and just saying, hey, if you guys want to still support, here's ways you can do it, either through Twitch, or if you don't want to do that, you can do it other ways. I don't know. I'll figure it out. The Discord I would like to keep going, and I would like it to fill it up with more people who actually interact with my content, things like that, because right now there's basically just a bunch of people from the giveaway in there. And yeah, in the podcast I want to keep doing this podcast will go on until no one's listening to it. And now, while that, unfortunately, the trend isn't great, I don't think that will ever fully happen, at least not anytime soon. And I suspect that when some Division stuff does come out, or even Mass Effect and things like that, that the listenership and viewership will probably pick up. But yeah, I feel like I'm too spread out, and I don't do anything very well right now. And I feel like if I focus more on just a couple things, I can, especially the podcast and streaming, or the podcast and YouTube, and then just stream whenever I can, or stream and podcast consistently and just YouTube whenever I can. Like, that's the conundrum I have. So if you have any input, please let me know. It's just, for me, like, I feel like I'm constantly saturating my social media and stuff with like, hey, check this out, look at this, donate to this, give money to that, pay for this, do that. And I think I have such a inactive community at this point that I'd be much better off, like, and maybe like once or twice a week promoting stuff I'm doing, but I'd probably be a lot better off promoting other people and what they're doing, and just having more genuine interactions, and not always feeling like 3/4 of my posts are saying like, hey, look at this thing, do this thing, listen to this, watch that, click on that thing. And so we'll be working on that, and you may see some changes coming up soon. And that is where we're going to wrap this thing up. You can find me all over the internet as Bond Diesel, including Twitter, YouTube, and on Twitch. Please consider donating again to my Extra Life 2022 campaign, and check out my EchoCast and Bond Diesel merch over on Streamlabs and on Designed by Humans. You can look up the links for all of those things in the description, or over on my Twitter at Bond Diesel. That's all I have. So until next time.